board meeting to order on Wednesday, April 25th at 7 p.m. The agenda will be public comment, finance operations related, consent agenda, policy and closed, superintendent repair, chairs report, and other.
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public comments.
You can go up to it.
Thank you, Nelson. Good evening. I'm Shawn Marie Oler, a resident of Bennington, and I'm here for a couple of things, and I will be brief. First, I wanted to thank, don't laugh, John. First, I'd like to thank the policy committee and this board for sending 7,300 for review as when I came back at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, and I see that it's coming to you again. I'd also like to thank the superintendent for addressing under his superintendent's report my comments at the Bennington and MAU floor meeting about the title and allocated grants that the SVSU as a whole gets and expended. I was out of town, or I would have been here to listen and perhaps ask questions. I do want to note that in the minutes it reflects $4.2 million allocated and 3.9 expended, and the number is actually 4.9 allocated and 3.9 expended, according to the SVSU grant sheet. And while I read the reasons in the minutes for the various discrepancies in not spending all the money, I think it would really benefit the community to know how the title money is spent, and if parents are involved according to the statute involved in some of the special ed and title funding money that comes through. And I was hoping that this board, I know that a couple different boards in the district have been asked how the money is spent, not just allocated. And I think it's quite a bit of money. And again, there is a $900,000 difference, and yes, money can roll over. It can't roll over indefinitely. And the SVSU has been the highest dollar amount recipient of the title funds for at least 3 years, more than Chittenden, more than the Northeast Kingdom. And so while it's unpredictable, it's predictable that it should be around the same dollar amount. So that dovetails into the integrated field review that actually talks about communication. And I know that this board has talked about increased communication and transparency, and I believe that this board will probably tackle that subject now that the budget has passed for the upcoming fiscal year. Then I have two other brief items. One is in looking at the superintendent's contract, it shows a clause from the previous contract that states that the superintendent shall automatically get the raise of the directors and the admins at central office. And I just want to point out that it is in fact the superintendent who reviews and recommends those increases. And so I ask you to think about that. And I know I sent that question to Nelson and to the HR, and that was forwarded on to the attorney, who then responded to me in terms of how Catherine's contract reflected a set raise. And a set raise to me is different than depending on whether or not the person underneath you that review gets a raise. So I ask you to think about that. And when you refer to in the minutes off-contract employees, I think what you're referring to is non-union employees, because they all have contracts. The superintendent has a contract, the administrators, Frank Barnes has a contract, Wendy has a contract, so they're not non-contracted employees. They're non-bargaining unit employees. And then my last comment has to do with the posting of an HR director. I noticed that this board and Jim Culkeen recommended a $90,000 a year professional a year and a half ago. And I see him noted in the minutes last, maybe 6-7 months ago. He's no longer on the website. There's no minutes that reflect a resignation, a termination, a separation, and yet there's a posting for a new HR director. If you read through the minutes, and I'm certainly not blaming this on Richard, Nick is referred to as acting HR director, HR manager, HR generalist, and I'm happy to see that it's posted because Catherine and the SU board worked really, really hard to convince this board that we needed a professional HR person. And also in reading through the minutes, which you think I might have nothing better to do than to read the minutes, Jim Culkeen reported a year and a half ago at the beginning of the school year that you had an extremely high turnover rate of 72 employees. It was noted in several minutes afterwards that the HR director would look into that the exit interviews weren't really producing enough information and that the professional HR director was going to look into this. And that was a year and a half ago, and I don't see that there is an HR director. And if you look at your recommendation from the integrated field report, one of their recommendations of their big four is to retain and keep qualified staff. And I think all of this is the big picture of the SVSU. And so my last comment would be that I also looked through the minutes and was looking for the pre-established goals for the superintendent that he is evaluated by. And I have, while I've read the 2 evaluations from this year and the previous year, I see no predetermined goals other than what's actually in the job description, which lines up with the statute on all the various different parts of the qualification. So I think it would be really helpful for the community who's trying to see how people are measured in all of our administrative positions to see what the goals were. I know that the goals for continuous improvement have been readily talked about, and I applaud that, and the various improvements with the test scores have been talked about, but in terms of what you expect from your leadership and what the goals are, that is not very transparent. So those are my comments for tonight, and I probably used up your whole 5 minutes. So I thank you, and I hope to get answers to some of these questions in the future.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Yeah, hi, my name's Kevin Hoy, born and raised right here in Bennington. I'm a conservationist, lived here my whole life. I had a question regarding, again, school safety and a plan to reduce gun violence in the future. Can anybody here tell me anything that we've done to combat those 2 issues? What have we done on that as far as an effective change? Is there anything?
That in your report. He'll give that in his report of what we've been doing.
Okay.
When it gets to the superintendent, because they have hired a safety officer and they have done some steps, and he'll report on that.
Excellent. Well, I know, again, we had the privilege of having a resource officer here at MAU for a number of years, and that's awesome. I think it works. But effectively, I don't see a lot happening. I mean, we've had this March for Our Lives. We see students, a lot of demonstrations. We just went through a whole bunch of gun laws here in Vermont that I'm completely against. We're removing rights of citizens that I don't think are going to do anything. I've got an actual solution, and it's putting education in our schools. Something, again, Hunter education, I've been pushing this for the last 14 years. It keeps schools safe now. Again, I know you guys are not in favor of arming our schools at all.
Don't say you guys.
Okay, well.
Don't say you guys.
Well, I apologize. My understanding is the
Let's let
board
the person speak now.
is not in favor of that. And again, I think the public is in disagreement with that. I know I am. I'd like to take the target tag off of our schools. Hunter education, again, comes with a number of benefits. I'm talking basically basic gun safety. You don't point a gun at a person. Treat every gun like it's loaded, right? Along with critical thinking, basic first aid for everybody. These are standardized things that I think we should be teaching our kids. The science of conservation, the history of our wildlife, our natural resources, especially in Vermont, I think are very, very important. Travel and tourism, economic growth and development, surrounding outdoor recreation. This is what we do. I think hunting, fishing, the outdoors, guns are a big part of what make us Vermonters. I think it's our core values. I think we're getting away from our culture, and I'm going to blame you guys. Frankly, I'm a little upset about giving up my rights. One thing that's become very apparent to me in the last month or so, since Florida specifically, since the Florida tragedy, is the lack of education. And I'm not talking about just our students. Specifically, I'm talking about our educators, right? We don't know definitions, we don't know current gun laws, we don't know anything, right? If I hear another person complain about the AR-15, which is an inferior weapon, it's not even a good deer rifle, I'm going to lose my mind. Again, hunter education since its inception in 1970 has been proven to save lives, as where gun control, I'd love to see any kind of evidence that says it does anything.
Go to Chicago.
Go to Chicago, go with pride abandoned so on. And I don't want to make this into a debate, but the biggest problem again is funding, and where do we put it? You guys have got your hands full. I know you're surrounded with a lot of curriculum. They've done this in a couple other states where they give you a half year of physical education, a quarter year of health, and a quarter year of conservation. It's standardized curriculum that's accepted in all 50 states throughout the world. We have hunter education instructors here in Vermont. Again, they're trained, state certified, they got background checks, they're trained to both teach and carry. It just makes sense to me. We have funding in place, state and federal funding. We can go back against the Pittman
You're
Robinson
starting to
Act.
repeat yourself, but let me ask a couple questions.
Sure.
One, do you think this should be done from the elementary level to the high school level, or do you think there's a specific grade level that we should be looking at, doing this training?
Personally, again, I've been doing this. I've been, teaching kids to play with guns for the last couple of decades. In my experience, I like to hit them really, really young. I don't think the public's going to agree with that. And with school schedules, I think it fits in perfectly with this school right here, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade.
Do you think it's any different than the drug training and the other training that we're giving them in the tobacco and so forth, gun training?
I do. It's completely different. First of all, it's mostly firearms oriented. And again, if you take this course, it doesn't mean you're going to have to be a hunter, that you have to purchase a firearm. But if you do, then you're trained to use it, right? And again, since its inception, it's been proven to reduce injuries. So it's something that works. It's something that we have. Everything's in place. All we have to do is implement it. I've talked to the governor, who's in favor. Again, the governor got on board with the VORAC, the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative. This is the educational piece that goes with that. Senator Dick Sears, right, a Democrat, again, is in favor of this. It only makes sense to me to put education. We're talking about the history of U.S. Fish and Wildlife and basic gun
Yeah,
safety.
you've already talked, I don't want you
America
to.
should be learning that. I'm losing my rights because you guys aren't doing that. Not only are the teachers not teaching our kids, but they're teaching them incorrect information, and that upsets me. So what I'm requesting today is some sort of a committee to look at the education in schools idea. I will volunteer my assistance. Again, I'm a pretty knowledgeable guy, got a lot of connections. I'm doing this local, state, and on a national level. We've got lots of statistics and graphs that you guys, I know, will love.
Okay,
so
I understand the question. Basically, what you're doing is looking for the school system to form a committee to look at gun training.
Right, I'm going around in circles because I've been, again, I spoke with Mr. Colkeen and a number of other teachers. They keep referring me back to the state. I've talked to the state says we can implement this
I'm going to
at a
stop
local
you because
level.
I'm going to stop you.
So I'd
You're
like
repeating yourself.
I'd like a local committee.
But you like a local committee
I
to
would.
look at that.
And I'd love to be involved. That's your decision, though.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. And Jim has your name, so if we do form a committee, you could be something that would be on that as well.
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to do so.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, any other public comment? None heard. Moving on. Finance operations related and closed with this, the treasurer report for March. Approval and renewal of rubbish removal. Let's do one at a time. Treasurer report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approval for renewal of rubbish removal contract.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this?
A little background. Our current contract with TAM Waste Management is expiring as of June 30th. I've reached out to the company and also confirmed with legal that we can renew this contract because we're below threshold as stated in statute. What Trevor has offered is to keep the pricing still, so level funding for next year. So it would just be a one-year renewal at this point, what we're asking for. He did actually continue that offer for 2% for the following year and 2% the year after, which we'll have to take up on an annual basis. But
Yeah, we'll take
at
that
this
up.
point, yeah, just
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Does everybody understand what the
Well, I'd
motion
just
is?
like to ask, I have
Go ahead.
asked this before, but do we have to go for bid?
we don't. We did go out for bid 3 years ago, and because
Okay,
we're
well-
below that threshold, we're
Just so
within
everybody's
the
on the same
confines of the
page.
statute. Yep.
Thank you.
So we don't have to put it out for bid, we didn't, but you need our okay
To renew it.
to renew it, okay.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? All right, all those in favor of the, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda?
In the minutes, a close reader called me out on page 1, line 36, that France was nominated as vice chair, not as chair. And then you also just heard Sean Marie talk about the 4.9 million for the grants. That's on page 3, line 28, so 4.2 should be changed to 4.9.
Okay. Any other changes to that? I'll take a amendment to your motion to put those changes in. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor,
Well,
you got one?
no, the discussion, we have two, we have the assistant superintendent that's gonna be retiring, and I think that, you know, I hate to see that happen. There's nothing we can do about it, it's already been submitted, but we definitely appreciate the work that she's been doing, and is doing in central office and doing with curriculum around the district. And so I sort of hate to see this happen.
Okay.
Can we,
I agree with you.
so we ought to ask the clerk to write a letter to the
Yeah, would
assistant
regret that,
superintendent?
Yeah.
okay. So I've got a request for the clerk to send a letter with regret accepting her resignation.
Who's our clerk? Dick, right?
Yeah, Dick, but I'm sure somebody will get a hold of him and let him know that.
Not here.
It's always good to give people things to do when they're happy. Okay.
I signed up for it before, so.
Okay.
Got it.
Yep, with those changes, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nays? So carried. Okay, policy 7300. This is to warn public participation at board meetings.
So
Okay,
Second.
okay, discussion. Any? I know we
I
talked about
I have
that.
one question of Leon. I asked this of my board's rep on this committee. Sometimes at North Bennington, if we have a topic that someone's there that they wish to listen to, we ask them to come and participate during the discussion. And that is still feasible and allowable under this policy. I want to make certain of that.
Yes, that's allowable, that's the chair's
Discretion.
option by the chair.
Yeah, you think it's in the chair's prerogative.
Right,
That's what I hoped and what I
right,
believed was left open.
it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
it says it there.
Okay.
I read it also.
Call the question?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All nays, abstentions? So carried. Superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. The last SVSU meeting, the chair asked that if I give some updates on some of the things that are going on in other districts so that everyone hears about it. So I will start with Mount Anthony Union High School, the principal search. The screening committee completed its work this week on Monday, and I will meet with the screening committee next week if we can find a date. I gave 3 dates that I'm available to meet with the screening committee to receive the finalists from them, and then the process will be that I will meet the candidate, we'll have all the directors meet with the candidate. I imagine there'll be attempt at a site search, and I say attempt based on some of the candidates. I don't know if that's going to be possible. So that is in progress, and hopefully, I don't know if we will have a candidate by the MAU May meeting, which is the third Wednesday. It could be tight to do that and do all the reference and background checks, but trying to move as quickly as possible. As you recall, they did a search and they came up with 1 finalist, and the policy required that there be 2 or more candidates to move forward to the superintendent. So they re-advertised the position, and that's been part of that delay. So now they're, David is on that committee, so.
As, you know.
As is there, thank you. The director of HR was noted earlier that it is posted. The director is on personal leave currently, and that is why we're posted that position. The posting closed on April 22nd, and so it's closed. And did I say posted? I'm sorry. The posting closed on April 22nd, so we have a number of candidates for that. So those interviews will also be beginning. On April 2nd, I received, as Leon noted, the intent to retire letter from Assistant Superintendent Dr. Donna Lee. We are updating the job description for that because it hasn't been done for some time, and I anticipate that we will post that next week. In both of these positions, I'm going to follow the policy and confer with the board chair for the screening process on those positions. On April 12th, I received the resignation of Dr. Michael Mugitz. He's the principal of Molly Stark Elementary School. That has also been posted and will close May 12th. I'm meeting with the BSD board chair on Friday to discuss the process that they will use for filling that position. Another position that's been open and is coming to a close is the Mount Anthony Union High School athletic director. There's been a screening committee working on that, and they presented to me a finalist this week. I will be conducting that interview this week and have a recommendation for the MAU board at their next meeting. Teacher openings throughout the district. As of right now, there's throughout all school districts, and this will be administrators as well as teachers. Also includes long-term subs coverage for like maternity leave. So we currently have 26 openings throughout all the districts. 9 of those were resignations, 9 were retirements, 6 were non-renewals, and the rest were some smaller other reasons. So that gives you a little snapshot of what we will be working on in the next couple of months. There is going to be a report coming out on the amount of provisional licenses that districts grant. A provisional license is something that we get for a teacher who may be coming into our districts, who may be licensed in another state, Massachusetts, New York, but don't hold a Vermont license. So we apply for a provisional license for them. So in terms of numbers, we're one of the largest districts in the state ranking for them, because we're averaging 8.2 provisional licenses a year. But by terms of the percentage of over 350 teachers that we have, it's a pretty small percentage, especially considering where we do hire a lot of teachers from out of state. But that's something that will be coming out from the standards board. State safety reviews. The governor ordered that all schools have a safety review. The Vermont State Police came and did Shaftesbury, Woodford, and Pownell. The Bennington Police did the Bennington schools. There was a set series of questions on a PowerPoint that was sent to the local law enforcement and to the state law enforcement, and they went through, and not just public school, they also did colleges and independent schools and private schools. So tied to that, the results of that, which will be released next week. Let me be clear on this. So right now, when they release this report, the public report will be released, later this week. At this time, the report of all those school safety reports will be a focus of statewide information only. So neither the supervisory union or district school level data were released to anyone. And their reasoning for this, they consider the information collected in this survey as protected due to public safety considerations and exempt from public record requests. So it's our hope that they will share those results with us, because stage 2 of this is state funding for school safety. And those grants were announced the 23rd of this week's Monday. So throughout March, they did all these safety assessments. Law enforcement conducted the safety assessments. And now they've announced, the governor announced in a press conference last Thursday that there's going to be $4 million available in capital funding for public, private, and independent schools for school safety infrastructure. So we will get the RFP for proposals by June 1st. We have July 1 to get the proposals back to public safety, and the grants will be awarded to schools by August 1. Maximum grant award is $25,000. They are competitive, so there's no allotments for it. Some of the things in the school safety reviews at the different schools with camera systems, radio communication systems, telephone system upgrades, alert systems similar to what you would see as a fire alarm, only it's a blue strobe with a blue pull box as opposed to a red box. These are all different things that Vic Milani, our school safety, SVSU safety coordinator, is reviewing, and he's going to be involved in writing these grants. But it concerns me a little that they're competitive. In other words, there's not enough money to fund everyone at that level. And honestly, for some of these systems, $25,000 is a little on the low side, but it is a start. All our schools possibly could use it for the visitor identification system that we propose putting in all the schools.
Is it $25,000 for each school
Each
district?
district, yes. Per school, 25 per school, not per, so per school, so.
For each school building?
Per school building, yes. So Division Street, which is Kate Abbott's purview, we did receive some good news. You may have been aware that that site used to be a dry cleaner, and there was some concerns about possible soil contamination under that building. When they did the outside soil testing a few months ago, it came back with levels that they felt warranted going under the building for soil samples. Those results have come back, and it's trace amounts of the chemical in the soil, well below, in 2 sites, well below any need for remediation, and more importantly, nothing came back in the water samples. So, Kate, that formal letter is coming up from the state next week. Is that what we understand? Yeah.
The CED will be drafting a letter for all of the region and our families, and then we'll send that out with, but it's all really positive results and good news, exciting for us.
Good.
And good of the state to be so proactive.
It was positive news, so we're like, where will we put all those children? So, what else did I have for you? The annual retirement dinner, which some of you like to attend, for retiring professional staff and teachers, will be held on May 17th in this building at 5 o'clock. So if you think you may want to attend that, we'll send out a memo to remind you, but just kind of hold the date if you might want to go, and I'll ask you that you let my administrative assistant Karen know if you wish to attend. I also have a memorandum of understanding. This is from the support staff contract. So, who was on that negotiations with this committee? Sports staff, yeah. So what this is, and this is a copy of it because the original went to Pownell tonight, unless someone from Pownell brought it with them. Do you have, no? So Dr. Leap took that. It needs to be signed. What this is when our lawyer, and it is our mistake, put the contract together to sign. She included incorrect language on health insurance. So we have not printed the contract yet. That's why it's not up on our website. So this is the correct language on health insurance, and you'll see that it's been signed off by the association. Shaftesbury signed it at their meeting. So this has to go to all the different boards. It's 18.3 is what the change. That is the correct language. And the draft that our attorney put together to sign at the signing event contained boilerplate language from not our contract. So, a mistake, but.
And it was,
So I would need a motion from the board to authorize the chair to come in and sign this memorandum.
Second.
Any further discussion on it?
just clarifying questions here. The contract was signed by both parties?
Yes,
With
completely
incorrect
signed.
language?
Yeah.
And when was that? Back in the fall?
Yeah, back in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at some point, somebody caught it in
Mhm.
a closer reading.
Yeah. So when how negotiations works as we get to the end, the whole contract isn't there. There's like references to changes, and they sign a memorandum on that. So and that's when, obviously, after that time, this mistake was caught. It was not a health insurance plan as we have it. We had agreed to, and that's what this language is.
Thank you.
Need a motion for me to
I
sign
think
this?
Jordan made the motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now come and sign.
And that's all I have, unless there's questions.
Any questions from the board members first?
Actually, not a question, but just a comment that regarding the safety and alluding to the question that was asked earlier about the superintendent's specific goals. Regular attendees at this meeting and other board meetings will know that one of the goals was focusing on school system-wide, district-wide safety for the year. And we've had a number of updates from Vic Milani on that subject. So, when I read in the news about these grants, it didn't mention the blue lights, but a lot of the other things it mentioned that they were looking for when they went through the different buildings, it felt like, oh, those are things that we're doing, or that at least have been talked about in his report. So that seemed positive.
I think our schools if we get individual revolts, and I understand why they don't want to release
Yes,
them.
I get it too.
Yeah. The comments we received, we had been progressive and was far ahead on many of these items, particularly, the buzz-in system in the buildings and door locks and cameras. Not every school has them yet. Shaftesbury being one.
The other thing, too, was when you speak about goals, there was the goals on communication officer or someone to be hired in that role.
Right, that I didn't list that one. That position has been posted. I think we have another week to go before that position closes. And last time I looked, we had somewhere in the vicinity of 13 applications for the communication specialist.
And in fact, I'll give my report here. Basically, when we did your evaluations and we highlighted the different things that we set as goals, before we actually read off your evaluation here, what we found was that the report that we got from the visiting group that came down and looked at all the schools had a lot of the things that we highlighted as your goals as things to be, which was communication between schools, curriculum between schools, and different things that we have as goals in your evaluation. So I'm glad to hear that the HR thing's going, because I think, not the HR, the communications.
Communication, yeah.
Because I think that's where a lot of this gets lost that we don't get out there and let people know what's going on. The other thing I have is that the committees have been appointed. You've all been sent the notice of who's on what. Budget Finance was Ray and myself. Education was Dan Monks, David, and then for Education, Policy is Dick Franz and Leon. Technology was Ed Moore and Dan Monks. And the Superintendent evaluation this year will be Nelson Brownell, John Peasley, David, Leon, Ray, Dick Franz, and I don't know how you say her name. Chala will be the other one that'll be on it. I noticed they went up on the site yet, but I know I sent that, so if we could get them on the site, I'd appreciate that. Okay. And with that said, I don't have anything else to report. Okay, other business.
I was gonna say, I should have been on this, we had, new board chair, new board members, training.
We did have a new board training, yes. Sparsely attended, unfortunately. So Thursday, the 12th of April, we did training for new board members, 2 hours at central office. All directors were there and gave an overview of their area of operations, but we still have a couple of new board members that we need to reach out to individually. But we started this process last year, and I got to give credit to Renee for really, because finance is such a big piece of the orientation for new board members. Thank you, Lynn.
And just reading those things. John, you have something? You're just looking at me. I saw that look over your glasses.
When we get done.
Okay, other? Sean? Marie?
I just had a question that you may or may not be able to answer that came up under the superintendent's report in terms of the HR director on leave. A leave implies usually that somebody's coming back, but you're saying that the job is posted, so I'm going to assume he's not coming back. So my next question would be, is he being paid while he's not here?
He's on personal leave right now.
Okay, so, I mean, I'm just thinking of all the people we've paid not to work. So I'm just asking directly if this HR director is being paid his $90,000 a year salary for being on personal leave. And the board did not need to approve a personal leave with pay. I find that highly unusual. Thank you.
Anything else? With nothing, I'll take the motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.